What's going on, folks? Welcome to Got Your Back. Live stream, morning after a damn late night game. Holy smokes, what the heck was with that start time? Are you kidding me? Puck drop was what, 8:50 something? Crazy. Not sure how many kids were awake when Connor McDavid scored his 60th last night, but it was some kind of moment inside the building last night. And we're going to spend some time on the podcast today talking about it. I'm fired up about today's podcast, not just because I don't only have to talk to Jason Strudwick, which is a treat, but because we're going to talk some advanced numbers. And I love learning stuff. That's what we're going to do today. Mike Kelly, NHL Network and Sportlogiq, is going to join us to talk about McDavid's milestone last night, but also we're going to evaluate the Oilers as a group defensively. Where are they at? What do the numbers say? Mike's going to help us dig into the numbers and paint a very real picture of where the Oilers are at defensively this year. Of course, as always, Got Your Back, brought to you by Mr. Dirk, taking on the challenge of cleaning up Struds. I'm doing a pretty good job. I've seen him a couple of times out and about this year. He's looking good. Just off White Avenue and 102nd Street, of course, Mr. Dirks has all your clothing needs. If you want to tighten things up a little around the office, sharpen up, they have fantastic suits, pants, shirts, dress clothes. If you just want to send that signal that you're on your game. They've also got a great selection of casual wear as well. Go see Sterling. Go see Dan. I'm getting ready for the playoff push, and so that means time to freshen up. Maybe add a few shirts. Grab another suit or two. I hear my brand is coming in, so going to get down to Mr. Dirk right away. All right, without further ado, let's get to the guys. Mike Kelly from NHL Network and Sportlogiq and Jason Strudwick. We're live streaming this morning, guys. Heads up. So no second chances. We are live.
Yeah, it's great to be on here, guys. And Mike Kelly, it's nice to not be the smartest guy in the podcast now. It seems like you've taken over. So I haven't been number 2 all year.
I think by the end of the podcast, you might find yourself number 1 again.
Yeah, we'll see.
Bob was saying, late start 8:50. It's 10:50 last night where I am. So
yeah. And you did stick it out. You were up. I was texting you late last night about coming on the pod. So you were gutting it through last night. Oh
yeah, good old friends at TNT with their 10:50 starts. So
man.
That was a late one, but you know what? It's worth it when you watch what happened in overtime. And this guy, Connor McDavid,
yeah, that was crazy, man. I think I don't know. As soon as it went to overtime, I think everybody knew it was going to be him, but he did it in dramatic fashion. Before we get started here, Mike, and I'm going to apologize. This might be awkward for you, but my podcast host and I are going to get into a bit of a fight here quickly before we get started. Struds, Mike, if you want to come back like 2-3 minutes. Struds, got to explain this to you. We are podcast partners, and that means on this podcast, you can rip me to shreds in any way you want, and it's for people's entertainment, and it's fair game. What I can't have is you going on Jason Gregor's show daily, shredding me, then exiting his show, and then I'm up next with Gregor, because I got absolutely cold-cocked in the face yesterday with something you said right before you dropped your mic and walked out of the studio.
I don't know. I say a lot of things, and I'm not sure if I remember what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Appropriate at the time. But I didn't appreciate the middle finger emoji you sent me after.
Yeah, you're lucky. So how about this, Mike? I hop on Gregor's show at 5, and this dummy's already done and gone. First thing Gregor hits me with, hey, Ryan, how's it going? I'm like, I'm good, man. Like, I was having a good day. He's like, hey, before we get started talking hockey, so Struds called you fluffer. So, are you a fluffer? Do you fluff up your hair in certain areas to cover the balding spots? Like, just boom, like right off the top of the 5 o'clock hit.
Wow. Put you on the spot with it too.
My podcast partner.
But are you?
I don't know, a little bit.
That's why it's so good. It was gold. It was absolute gold. It was just pure gold there.
Well, if you have gold, save it for the pod then if it comes to ripping me apart. Because for you to go out there on someone else's show and tear me down, we got issues, buddy.
It was funny. I was dying. But anyway, you're welcome. You're welcome. Made for good radio.
I love Struddy's answer to that though, of I don't remember. Like I've I've seen a few hockey players throw that. I've had a lot of concussions, Mike. I don't know. I don't think I said that about you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And just played dumb. That's a stretch for Struds. Okay, sorry, Mike. Had to get that out of the way, or just the chemistry wouldn't have been there on the podcast this morning. I can't do a podcast with a hurt heart, and I needed to express my truth to Struds on that one.
Yeah. We hurt the ones we love the most.
Yeah, that's what he texts me. I text the middle finger emoji, and that's what he texts me. We hurt the ones we love the most, you sadist. That's not a thing, Struds.
I was on fire yesterday. I hope I have a little left for the next 30 minutes on this thing.
All right. Okay, let's get to that. Enough of this nonsense. Let's get to that night last night. Time for the breakdown, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. Mike, you haven't been on the pod before. If you had, you would know that is my family company. That's my brother's company. Rick runs a branch here in Edmonton, and Rob's got a branch out in Calgary. It's high quality, maintenance free fencing and decking products. Do you have wood in your backyard, Mike, or you got any vinyl back there, buddy?
Yeah, no wood, but definitely need a new fence.
Yeah.
So,
well, and where are you located? I'm pretty sure DLR can't get product to you, but
well, in Quebec, so most things don't come to Quebec. Available in Canada is available everywhere but Quebec.
Oh, there you go. Is that whose phone is going off, by the way? Is that mine ding? That might be me dinging, but it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Anyway, if you've always had that wood fence or deck in your backyard and you're tired of painting and staining and all that kind of stuff, give some thought to going with vinyl products from DLR, because they go in, they're beautiful when they go in. It's maintenance-free stuff. I've got a pile of it in my backyard. Totally taking advantage of the fact that my brothers run a company like that. I've had 3 different houses and 3 different maintenance-free decks in the backyard of each one of them. And I'm trying to remember if I've paid for any of them or not, but that's not the point. DLR Vinyl Products locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. I was in the building, and McDavid goes in on the first breakaway, and he pulls that move. And if you follow him into the corner, he's frustrated when he doesn't score. Like, he was wanting that goal, and he slammed his stick. Struds, he never slams his stick. But then all of a sudden, boom, in on the breakaway again. The building erupts, Struds. What do you make of the way that he got that done?
No, it's just Connor McDavid. I mean, it's so classic Connor McDavid. Just does it in his own style. The intensity to get it done. Then he scores and he kind of gives a little pump. Then he kind of, oh man, I don't want to show too much excitement. It was beautiful. What I loved about it, though, that his good buddy and wingman there 2 times, Leon Draisaitl, sets him up for breakaway passes. Like that first pass, the backhander through the neutral zone. I mean, that was elite on the tape, and he doesn't score. Leon's like, I'll go get the puck again.
Yeah,
just get
let's try that again.
And passes to him again, and then he kind of comes over and kind of has a funny smile. He's like, "You're welcome." You know what I mean? Like it was just, you couldn't draw it up any better. Overtime, it was 3 a.m. Like I don't know, Mike, I just, for him, just some guys just do things better and bigger, and he and Leon definitely are those guys.
Yeah, no, I love the fact you brought up those passes. Like, that was equally as impressive, right, with Leon. And it's crazy. It's so Brian Boyle is just starting with us here at the NHL Network. Great guy. I got to talk to him a little bit last night after the game, and he's joking about McDavid. He's like, this guy's in the wrong league. Yeah, like there should be another one somewhere for him. But that's what it is. It's crazy. So I was watching it too, and I'm like, man, that stick breaks when you smash it in the corner. You got to go to the bench. Like, there's,
can you imagine
that out to nobody. So
can you imagine it? Because Draisaitl would have still made the pass, and it just McDavid standing there with a broken stick. He never does that. Like, McDavid never shows frustration like that.
Yeah, and like you said, you're in the building. You see him every night, right? I mean, he would have gone in and soccer kicked it in somehow and would have done it, I'm sure. But it's awesome. Like, you try to think like you're watching. I think he's like physically the most gifted hockey player ever to live. Yeah. Wayne did so much with his mind, and Mario was very physically gifted, and maybe that's number one, but no one doing it the way he does it. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Steve Dryden, the Quizmaster, he was the first one to say it to me, so I'm just going to give him credit for having coined this notion about McDavid. But he's the most highly evolved hockey player the world has ever seen, right? So, I mean, people want to compare him to Gretzky, and it's so hard because of the generations and other great players, not just Gretzky. But in this moment, here and now, There has never been a more talented, highly evolved player from a skills standpoint and playing the game standpoint as Connor McDavid. And it's, you try hard for it not to get old covering it every single day. But you have to, and again, we don't cheer. We don't cheer at these games, and, you cover it and you do the journalism thing, but even then you just marvel at what Connor McDavid is able to do, and just physically and the way he does it. Struds, the one thing that stands out to me, well, actually, you know what? Let's hear from McDavid in the Weiss Johnson soundbox. We talked to him post-game last night. We're having some fun with him, but here's McDavid talking about the way that play went down.
A really, really weird play. Obviously, Leo makes a great play on the first pass, and I felt like I was kind of pressing for the 60th all night, and at this point, not to bury that one. You're not going to get many better looks than that, and not every day you get 2 breakaways back to back like that. So he made 2 unbelievable plays, just ridiculous.
So his first goal, he banks it in off the back of the goalie's head, which, by the way, he was trying to do. And then he goes in, uses the same move twice on the breakaway, which after the game he was like, well, he wouldn't have expected that, right? So you got McDavid's just, the synapses are just, that is highly evolved right there. But Mike, what stands out to me when I watch McDavid play this season is that he is playing the game with a legit shooter's instinct. And that was not the way McDavid entered this league and played the first 5 or 6 years. He was a pass instinct player. So it's amazing to me to have watched a guy as good as he is and as dominant as he is still adjust his game and change the way that he is fundamentally thinking about each rush up ice and about each moment. His instinct has changed into that of a goal scorer. That's rare to me.
Yeah, no question. And we've watched Crosby do it and McKinnon and other superstars where they just tweak things in their already kind of best in the world type game. Sid couldn't win faceoffs when he came into the league. He's one of the best in the world now, like just different details of the game. And, McDavid still leads the league in assists. It's not like he's given up as a playmaker. He's more than one a game. So that's still there. But you're right. And like you and I have talked a lot this year, Ryan, about, and you've asked some great questions. We pulled some interesting numbers, based on what you're seeing as well of, is he shooting more on 2-on-1s? Yeah, he is. And you've done some good breakdowns on that stuff. So he has changed his mentality in certain ways. He's better off the rush than he's ever been. And I think this is the hallmark of any great player, their game. And I worked with a power forward on how to score more goals. And for him, it was totally different because his game's net front and deflections and in the corners and all that. But find ways to improve, to score in the way that you can. Well, Connor's the speed. And, he's got 25 goals off the rush. Since he came into the league, there hasn't been a player who's ever hit 20 in a season. And he's obviously led the league in almost all the years. But he's just outdoing himself when it comes to scoring now and the ways that he's doing it. It's crazy to watch.
Struds, what impresses you most about what he's added to an already brilliant game?
You talked about you don't cheer for players, and or cheer in the press box. I cheer for greatness, and I of all the players I've saw play and or play against, and again have seen players play, I never thought I would ever put someone beside Wayne Gretzky. And about 10 days ago, I decided I'd put McDavid beside him, and that is crazy. Like I never thought I would ever think to put someone beside Gretzky. I think Sidney Crosby is amazing. I love the way Sidney Crosby played. I hated playing against him because he just embarrassed me all the time. But he is to me right underneath Wayne. But I've now put McDavid above him because he can beat you in so many different ways. And as a D-man, you guys are talking about off the rush. So it's a 2-on-1, and you're like, okay, well, I better take the pass away because I don't want McDavid shooting. This is a couple of years ago. Well, now he is shooting and beating goal 5-hole. So now you're going down. You're like, okay, not only can he pass it, not only can he shoot it, he can also skate around me if I go down. It's really hard to kind of read what you're going to do against him. So the multitude of ways he can beat you, just to me puts him on another stratosphere. And as D-men are on roller skates, even his first goal last night. Oh, okay, good. Keep him behind the net, guys. Keep him behind the net. Well, he goes behind the net, banks off the goalie's head. So those things are calculated. He's thought this through. This isn't luck. When you do that, some guys do it every now and then, but everything he does is calculated. And that's what's scary as a defender because you can't it's not just raw talent. It's not just thinking. It's a combination of both that just makes him so hard to play against. My God.
Hey, Struddy. So I was talking about this with a player a couple of days ago too, and like you think about, there's guys in the league. It's such a skill league, right? Speed. Think about players that are really fast, but maybe not, great players in the league. And you can kind of tell, like, these guys just burned everyone their entire lives. Might not have taken to coaching so much because they didn't have to. And then you get to the best league, and it's like, well, there's other guys that are as fast as you now too. So maybe, but like McDavid, how easy would have been just to walk on his skill and be a great player still the whole way through. But he seems like he's just learning and getting better in every way that he can, the way that a guy who like is battling to stay in the league would do it. But he's also the best player in the league. And like Crosby did that, right? And that's where I'm fascinated with kind of the best of the best in terms of athletes, is like, you're already the best and you're looking for every single way to get 2% better. And he fits that for sure.
Yeah. It's, I'll just give an example. Last night, he does this all the time when he's coming to the neutral zone, and as he's coming up to a player and he knows he can beat him, he's already thinking about his next move before he's even around that guy, and I know a lot of people say, well, you should be doing that, but always look a play ahead. But he did it, and he could see that he's like, okay, I'm gonna get around this guy, and he gets his head up as he skates around the guy. He's already looking for the next play, and it wasn't like it was they had a lot of gap. I'm talking like he was in on his hands, but he beat the guy around, and like that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Most guys are like, I'll beat this guy now. What have I got on the other side? Well, he's already thinking ahead before he even beats that guy, and that, as a defender, is just scary. You're just like, oh man, how am I going to stop this guy? And there's really good players out there who do a good job against them, but they don't do a great job.
You know what I love about last night, you guys, because he's generally pretty, he's an unselfish player. I could tell from the moment that game started, he wants it tonight. He's trying to get it tonight. Yeah. Did you see the way he played the game last night? The telltale sign was he challenged a guy at the blue line, tried to stick handle through him, and lost the puck. And it went back the other way. And I went, he never does that. He's thinking offense tonight. How often does McDavid try and go through someone and not get through him and turn the puck over at the offensive blue line, right? Which is one of those things coaches are always like, over. McDavid almost never does it. It's just not in his game. But he was pushing so hard last night it happened. He was shooting 13 shot attempts. He tried to go off the back of the goalie a second time and get it into the net. I love the fact that he was like, screw it. I want this damn thing. I'm going to try and get it. And I'm not saying he didn't play an okay defensive game, but he wanted it. Like this 60 to McDavid, watching Austin Matthews do it last year, guys, I'm telling you, and he's been upfront with the fact that when you score 60, you're doing something right. He watched Matthews. He studied the way he did it. He studied Crosby. He went to school on how to try and improve this aspect of his game. And he's just done an unreal job. And now with this shooter's instinct, he gets himself to 60 and maybe beyond. Here's Leon Draisaitl on that shooter's instinct.
Everyone was always talking about it, if you shoot more, you can score more. He's obviously doing it, and he's worked extremely hard at it. I think what a lot of people don't really see. He put so much work into every little detail of his game, and it was just. At some point it was going to happen that way. Regardless.
Leon Draisaitl in the Weiss Johnson soundbox. We'll remind you quickly, guys, 45 years they have in the business. Should you need a new furnace, garage heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or any of those things serviced, Weiss Johnson is the place to go. Dennis, huge Oiler fan. I'm sure he was he's kind of a laid-back guy, but I'm sure he was fist-pumping last night when McDavid got his 60th. They are Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, and plumbing services. Give them a call, 780-463-3096. Oh, Mike, you've probably never heard the Weiss Johnson jingle before. This is iconic in Edmonton, Mike.
All right.
Anybody in Edmonton could sing along with this because it's been on the radio for years, so we're pumped to have it here on the podcast. Here is the Weiss Johnson jingle. Weiss Johnson, Weiss Johnson, whoa. Hey! All right, there you go. That was Leon Draisaitl on the Weiss Johnson soundbox. So let's talk about what might be possible. I believe his pace is 68. I don't know. It feels to me like he's going to get there. They've got Arizona, the Sharks a couple of times, Mike. I know it's not the pace that he's put up, but I mean, if I told you, put your mortgage on it, you need to be right or wrong to the extent of your mortgage. What are you doing on McDavid getting to 70? Bet responsibly, by the way. I'm not advocating that.
I don't want to have to throw a mortgage on anything. Yeah, I'm not betting against him. I mean, why would you? You could say 75, and I'd say, well, if he wants to do it, he'll find a way.
How bad does he want it? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you he does. So no, and we're talking about what, 10 goals in 10 games?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not betting against it.
And Leon's going to want to get him there, Struddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I've got him down for 70. He just always every time I put a limit on him, and not that I'm like that sounds wrong, but every time I just kind of doubt him and think that's a bridge too far, he just storms the bridge and burns it behind him. Like he's that guy, right? And so I think he's going to find a way. And you talk about the teams that are easier against, but I think he's going to want to put a statement on Saturday night as well. When you play Vegas, you play the Kings, those teams, those games mean to him. He means something to him. And Mike, you might have a better idea, but you talk about 60 goals this year. There aren't 15 empty netters and 5 goals and the 7-1 wins. He seems to have the timing of the goals, right? Game-winning goals, game-tying goals. It's a 2-2 game. Oh, don't worry, Connor's on the ice and he's going to score. And I played with Jaromir Jagr, and every time I played, we needed a goal, he delivered. And Connor seems to do that. So I think in those big games too, he's going to show up and want to say, "Hey guys, like this is not going to be fun playing us in the not preseason, postseason."
Yeah. No, you're right. He's got 10 game winners, and game winners tend to be a byproduct of just good players that are on the ice in those situations. Yep. I don't really think it's a great measure of, well, this guy's clutch in one way or another. But you're right. You're totally right. He can do it at any moment. And it's almost a given when overtime starts. It's like, well, when's he going to score the goal that wins the game? That's coming. Like we were joking, and you guys work in TV, and we were joking last night about the game's going to end late and you got to tape the thing, whatever. I'm like, I said this in the first period. I'm like, why don't we just tape the chat that Connor scored multiple goals in one?
Just get it done, eh? Just put it in the bank.
Yeah. So it's. And then but he does it. Like he doesn't disappoint. So yeah, 70's on the table, no question about it.
I don't think that, because people have been asking the question. I listen to the radio and on the pod here. Can situational issues get in the way? So Oilers playoff matchup gets baked in. Let's just say it's a lock. It's going to be LA. Let's say home ice isn't necessarily on the line, depending on what happens in the standings. I don't think there's anything that gets in the way of them allowing McDavid to chase this one. So what if there's nothing on the line for the last 2 games? Are you playing these guys? Are you resting them? Are you risking injury? What are you doing? He's chasing history here. And my gut instinct is that Jay Woodcroft and the staff won't get in the way of letting him do that. Now it'll all be within reason, but if he's at 67 goals with 2 games left, you're rolling him out there. I don't think you're resting him for the playoffs. Am I wrong, Struds? Like when you're chasing this level of history, I think players have pride. They want to play, right? Especially when you've been in all the games this year.
Yeah, can you imagine that conversation in the coach's room? Hey, Dave Manson, go tell Connor he's not playing the last 2 games. He's 3 goals away from 70. No, send Dave Pelche. No, Gullickson, you go tell him. Now, okay, let's just play him. Let's just play him anyways.
Better just play him.
You might dial, listen, he's not going to play. Last night I think he played almost 26 minutes. You might pull him back to 18, 19. But you tell me if you have 6 power plays or 4 power plays, you're not putting him out there with 3 goals. I'm sorry. I don't think there's a man brave enough to walk in there and tell Connor McDavid he's not playing the last 2 games when he's, let's say, 3-4 goals away from 70. It's not happening.
Got to just let her buck, hey, Mike?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I don't even want to bring this up, but if you do that and then an injury does happen and everyone's going to go crazy, but at the same time, you can't coach and play that way, right? So.
Not with a guy like this. You got to just see where this season goes. And, they're going to be – I mean, he's going to be trying to get, Leon to his milestones too. And, they're going to be unselfish in the way they do this together. But that Draisaitl's going to be killing himself to try and get a guy to 70. If I were to say to you, hey, you got 60 goals and 10 games left in the season. You got one guy you can play with to try and help get you there. I think most people's answers would be Leon Draisaitl. He's just that good a setup man. So he's got a great guy riding shotgun with him, and it's going to be a ton of fun to watch. Okay, that was the breakdown brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. So we have Mike Kelly from Sportlogiq and NHL Network here. We want to take advantage of that. Mike, Sportlogiq is fantastic, man. I love what you guys are doing there. Deeper dive on some numbers, some great analytics. You do fantastic work in trying to use numbers and common sense and blend them, because sometimes the world of the analytics can bog you down a little bit. You guys specialize in dialing it in and making it consumable. So in our takeaways segment, we're going to dig into the Edmonton Oilers and their defensive game and what is real with their defensive game. Takeaways brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC, the #1 GMC dealership in Canada for 5 years running. I was just at the dealership the other day. They've got some unreal classics there too. They have classic. If you're a fan of classic cars, go see the crew down there. It's a big part of their business. They have some beautiful, gorgeous older cars. They always have one or two of them at the dealership. And I was walking around there yesterday with Phil, and I was checking some of them out. Fantastic. But it's a great dealership. I recently grabbed a truck there. They make the buying process real easy, financing real easy. The staff is great. Just a real good vibe down at Sherwood Buick GMC. It's the great big dealership just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. So, Mike, you helped me with a piece I did on SportsCenter yesterday. Basically, the Oilers' goals against per game, 22nd in the league, not nearly good enough. But we wanted to dive into where the problems were actually coming from. So maybe just walk Struds and I through a little bit of what we found out when we used your guys' numbers to evaluate where the issues were.
Yeah, so anytime you're looking at defense, I think it's very important to separate team defense from goaltending. And you're trying to find the root of a strength or an issue or whatever it is, right? And one can very much affect the other. So there could be a team that's, 26th in goals against, and you could say, well, they're not good defensively. Well, maybe they're not that bad. Like this was Seattle last year. Seattle for a good chunk of the year was quite good in terms of team defense. They had awful goaltending. Yep. So it makes everything else look worse. Edmonton is that to a lesser degree this year, where you look at team defense and it's not that bad. It's actually above average. And the goaltending is what's tipped them to overall below average. So that's what we were talking about yesterday. And you look at, so the way I do that is you look at your team defense, and we can put that into expected goals against. So just the quality and the quantity of what you're giving up before we even talk about goalie. And then there's the goaltending side of it. And you can separate that too. And just say, based on the quality and the quantity that goalie's facing, how is the goaltending doing? So when you do that, you see that Edmonton's 12th in team defense, and in goaltending, they're around 25th.
Right.
And that gets you to that 22nd overall goals against average.
Yeah, it's interesting, Struds, because, we talk about the Oilers and their ability to defend all the time on the pod, right? And really, we know it's the difference between a deep playoff drive or not, because this team can score goals. It's about their ability to keep it out of their nets. But how much of it, Struds, from the eye test and watching it, would you have put on the goaltending versus the way the team defends overall? Because as Mike points out, the numbers show it does skew a little bit more towards the goaltenders on average giving up a little bit more than they should based on the way the Oilers are defending.
Yeah, interesting numbers from Mike. I would say that, I would agree with that. I think the first 20 games, I think the Oilers as a team really struggled defensively. And I don't know how the numbers are backing up, but I feel like they would have had a tough time with that. And then I think the last 40, 50 games, I think they were better defensively. Mm-hmm. As an ex-player, you look at the individual plays and the moments where, let's talk about last night where Bouchard gets the puck behind the net and he bumped off the puck and boom, 2 seconds later, it's in the back of his net. Like, I always feel that those types of moments are, they're preventable, but the other team's trying too. They're trying to get it back from you as well. But you got to take a look at the whole scope and the whole entire thing. But, I would say I think the first 20 games was pretty rough, I think, as a group defensively. And then after that, Mike, I don't know if you'd have those numbers there. I'd looked at it, but I that's kind of how I would view it on the whole, not individuals in this game.
Yeah, if I didn't do the exact 20 games, but if you look at the first 2 months of the season, you're right. They were 22nd in expected goals against. So that's the team defense. February on, the last kind of 2 months, they're 10th. So you're right, and that's what's great about talking to guys like yourself. You can eye test those things, and 9 times out of 10, you're bang on about it. Or you can kind of wash a bit away. And look, Jack Campbell has struggled, and because of Campbell's struggles, that's kind of inflated the goaltending the wrong way overall. Playoff start, Stuart Skinner's going to be the guy.
Yeah,
and when he can kind of do his thing, I don't think that's any kind of liability. So you kind of put that above average team defense in front of you, that best in the world offense in front of that, and you're looking pretty good, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess quickly, Mike, what about if you separated by goalie, individual goalie? Those numbers change quite a bit. Like if you go the Oilers with Skinner versus Oilers with Campbell, or is it still the same? And not, maybe over the whole, not just breaking down the 20, because it feels like Skinner, he seems to make this more solid stops, and Campbell, I think, he's had his moments for sure. I think a month Schauger maybe had of moments.
Yeah, where he was reasonably decent. Mike, you can if you can grab those numbers. If not, no worries. I just want to remind people too, we are live streaming today on both Twitter and on YouTube. So if anybody has any questions for Mike about analytics, one of the reasons I wanted to have him on too was to work through a few of these things and help us understand the way the numbers are gathered and how you can apply the hockey logic to those numbers. So if you have any questions for Mike Kelly from Sportlogiq and NHL Network, go ahead and fire them our way here on YouTube or on Twitter. Mike, any differential there between results, Skinner and Campbell?
Yeah, I'm just pulling that up right now, but there would be. I mean, unfortunately for Campbell, the second half in Toronto right through has not been great, and he did go on that little run where he was playing pretty well, and that's been the thing with him. He's been able to have those kind of runs where he can look great, and I think that's what led to the contract in Edmonton. Obviously, right? They were great. The difference, if you look. So I talked about team defense and looking at expected goals against, just to take the goalies out of it, right? And just see how your team's defending. If you want to take team defense out of it and just look at the goalie, you just look at that differential between your goals against and expected goals against.
Mm-hmm.
And if the differential is, better, then, your goalies are helping your defense on top of that. If it's not, goes the other way. So in terms of goals saved above expected, which is that isolated goaltending impact, Skinner's close to even, which is just kind of pretty much stops what he should stop.
Mm-hmm.
Not stealing anything, but not costing you much. And Campbell this year has been 26 goals below expected. So you can say based on what is allowed in front of him, he's given up 26 on top of that. And 26 goals in a season in total is a lot when you're swinging anything for a team, let alone one goalie's playing, one goalie's not even playing as much as another guy. So, it's been a bit of a fight for him.
A couple of the numbers that we pulled in an effort to describe where the Oilers are at defensively. Inner slot shots against. So the number of shots they give up in the inner slot, they were 15th in the league, right? That's a metric on how well they kind of protect the house in the middle of the ice there. Rush chances against. Number of times a team gets a good scoring chance off the rush against them, 13th in the league. Cycle chances against, 19th in the league. So we don't want people to misinterpret what we're saying, Mike. There are lots of areas which the Oilers need to, and if they want to go to a Stanley Cup final and potentially win it, these are areas they definitely need to shore up. But when you look at the goals against per game, it paints a picture of them being like a bottom third team or worse, night in, night out at playing defense. But when you take the goaltending out of it, it definitely paints a different picture.
Yeah, and that's why I think Oilers fans should be pretty, happy, comfortable, whatever you want with kind of the direction of the team now, the end of the season, going into the playoffs is, again, you're going to have Skinner in net, and if he just does his thing, that's going to be okay for them. And they're not, we're talking about a all-time historically great power play. We're talking about the best offense in the NHL in terms of process and results. You're getting greedy if you want the best defense too, and Boston's greedy and they got it. So lucky for them because they're just great at everything. But beyond that, you're talking about I would say a slightly above average defensive team that is an incredible offensive team with a goalie that I don't think is going to swing it too much either way. So this is what's going to be fascinating to me is if they play the Kings in the first round, which they might. LA, they can score. They're awesome defensively, like incredible defensively. They give you nothing, and they upgraded in goal. And so you go into that series, and I'd say they've got a better goalie. They're much better defensively, and they can score, but not as much as Edmonton. It's a great contrast, and we know what that series looked like last year. Like,
I think Oiler fans are afraid of the Kings, man. I think Oiler fans are fearing the Kings.
They absolutely should be, and LA would have a legitimate chance to punch them out in the first round. And when you just think about how good this Oilers team is, what Connor and Leon are doing, to think that they wouldn't get out of the first round, you'd view it as this massive failure, probably, right? But that's how good the Kings are, and they're going to be a tough out for anybody. But like last year, I picked LA to win that series, and they're up 3-2, and I'm thinking, that's looking pretty good. And then what happened, right?
Supernova.
Yeah, they just
those guys went supernova. Yeah,
they went bonkers.
Yeah,
and they're even better this year. And Edmonton's even better this year. Like Nuge is 11th in scoring. He's lighting it up.
Ridiculous. Struds, how do you like an LA matchup?
I don't like it at all, and I'll give you two names: Danault and Kopitar. Those two guys, they've done it, man. These guys have.
You're a big Danault guy. You're a big Danault guy. Yeah,
it's not, maybe not the mustache, but the rest of the package I really like. And Mike, you look at those two guys. Those two guys, when you look at like their ability, like they've faced down really good players in playoff series and won. Like these guys, they're not afraid. This is not a 23-year-old guy who's like, oh my God, I got to play against McDavid. Danault wants it. Kopitar's done it.
Yeah.
And then you put Doughty in there, Fiala, these other guys.
They're pissed about last year. Right?
Oh, for sure. It is.
The coach knows how to coach against those guys. He
100%.
does.
100%.
Was kind of sawing off Austin Matthews in that series, Montreal-Toronto, when Montreal got past them. Like he can saw off the best of the best, let alone Kopitar. And this is like so fascinating, right? So I was talking to Dave Reed the other day, and he's won a couple of Stanley Cups and was a great defensive forward too, and kind of knows that. And I said to him, like, here's a hypothetical, Reader. Who would you take in a playoff series? An elite defensive team with an edge in goal, or the best offense in the NHL? And without blinking, he's like, I'll take the defense. I'm like, great. So you take the Kings over the Oilers. Wow. They got McDavid and Draisaitl. I don't know. So, right. So it's like those two guys just blow up any kind of notion of what there should be because they're that good.
Yeah. And the challenge, I think, too, Fiala, at least the last time I saw it, he's on their third line. So that's a lot of firepower in that third line. So that means that you have, different matchups there as well. It's a matchup issue.
Listen to you, Struds. You're making it sound like it's going to be a waste of 8 days for the Oil.
No, it's not. But you know what? This is sick. It's a sick mind, but I want to see it. Like I want to see these guys go at it. Unfortunately, a really good team is going to get booted, but it's going to be like that across the NHL. Like that's just be honest. But the Oilers, and you go back and you look at some of the points you kind of crapped out, right? You could have grabbed here, could have grabbed there. And let's say it comes down to 3-4 points instead of first, you're now third or second. Yeah. So tight. Oh man. That's where the killer is, man. That's where the killer is.
We'll dive into the Weiss Johnson Twitter mentions here. Billy Frampton, and thank you for your contributions, by the way, on the stream. Mike, what is the biggest data tell between a team like the Bruins and the Oilers? So when you're digging beyond the surface, down a little bit deeper, are there areas that are very crystal clear, the difference that separates a team like the Boston Bruins and a team like the Edmonton Oilers? Both elite teams, but Boston just an all-timer of a season they're having here.
Yeah, so like this isn't going to make any team look good when you're comparing them to Boston. It's a great question, but Edmonton is as good, if not better, offensively. Like they do everything from a process standpoint. It gets the results. They get to the areas you need to get to. They create it in different ways. It's all good. And Boston does that as well. The team defense and the goaltending, like that's the luxury that Boston has, is that they play that responsible, effective defensive game because they've got Bergeron and all those guys that have been doing it forever and winning that way. It's just ingrained in their culture. And then they've also got, and I talk about separating goalies and defense. So you can give Linus Ullmark a little bit. You could say, well, he's got this great defensive team in front of him. It probably inflates his numbers a bit, and it does. But his numbers, even aside from that, are unbelievable. So That's the difference. You've got a much better defensive team and a goalie who's, if not the best in the league this year, he's definitely top 3.
Goals for per game. I'm just pulling it here. Oilers are first at 3.93. Boston is second at 3.76. So they bring the offense in a major way. But then you go to the other end of the spectrum, goals against, the Bruins are first. So when you're second in goals for per game and you're first in goals against, your formula is bloody well working. And the Bruins are an absolute juggernaut.
Yeah, I always look at differentials. So you can talk about, well, hey, this team scores a lot or this team doesn't give up a lot. Okay, well, what if it's great if you're a great defensive team, but if you can't score, you're in trouble, right? So, and like we'll bring this back to the conference final last year with Edmonton and Colorado. Both dynamic, awesome offensive teams, especially off the rush with their speed. Big difference is Colorado is as good defending off the rush as they are creating. And that is an outlier in the league. When you can create it all but not give a lot back, that's an outlier. And we watched that through 3 games of that series. Connor didn't have one chance off the rush, let alone a goal.
That was crazy.
And teams just don't do that to him. No one had done that to him all year. He hadn't gone 3 games without a scoring chance off the rush in a row. It doesn't happen. So that's where you can start to find those separators between teams.
Back to the mentions here. S.J. Carruthers. Mike, can one player change the overall defensive metrics for a team regarding Ekholm? When you take a player and drop him into a lineup and he plays the way that Matthias Ekholm has defensively, we know he was barely on the ice for any goals against. His plus-minus was great for whatever you find value in that stat, but really pushing the puck in the right direction and defending well. Do you notice a shift in the overall numbers in the big picture? Can one guy have that much of an impact?
Yeah, it can certainly have an impact. And I think what you just said is pretty spot on. Like, not only, I don't know if he kind of got pigeonholed as this defensive defenseman who's just like a shutdown guy, but you've all seen it now for a month. He's a great puck mover. He makes a great first pass. He can skate. This is a guy who's top 50 among defensemen in possession exits, possession entries, possessing the puck in the offensive zone. Like, he's got upside in terms of movement and possession, which all keeps it out of your own net and your own end, right? And him with Bouchard, then there's like the ripple effect. And Struddy, like you'd have a good handle on this playing D in the league, but he not only comes in and does what he does, he makes Evan Bouchard a lot more comfortable and better. He takes more off of Darnell Nurse to make him more comfortable and better. It's just this kind of ripple effect that he can have on everybody. So, one guy in a sport like hockey, it'd be tough to have a significant impact on the overall team defense, but definitely moves the needle the right way for them.
Struds, we saw a shift in the D pairings last night. Darnell Nurse, a little bit of time with Vinny Desharnais. The coaching staff wanted to give that a look. That's part of the Matthias Ekholm effect too, right? Everybody's game has shifted a little bit here. What did you make of that last night, Struds?
Yeah, you know what? I was wondering, because maybe a softer opponent, that's a bit unfair, but they maybe tried some different things with the 7D, different guys playing with different guys. Because you never know. Like in the playoffs, you got to get a sense of, unfortunately, there'll be injuries, not if, but when there'll be injuries. And you got to be able to mix guys in and get different looks. And even maybe against a team like LA or whatever, you want to have different looks for different lines. I mentioned Fiala on the third line. Maybe you have to double shift some guys or whatever. So I kind of like it because coaches tend to get stuck at times with they're a little bit too rigid. And I think when things have to be changed, you're not used to it. But, just a quick comment on Ekholm. I think what Ekholm does too is that you bring in Ekholm, you obviously get a boost there, but then they get a boost from Bouchard's kind of confidence and his relaxed play. But then other players see him and calm, they play more like him and just calm things down. And easy plays he makes, because with all due respect, he's not dangling through everyone. He's just making smart plays, kind of finding guys that are open and being patient, making the plays. So, as a younger player, I loved watching guys like that. It's like, man, he makes it look so easy. And so I think that's a huge boost as well. So great addition. It seemed like Hen Holland absolutely nailed it right on the bullseye there with that pickup.
Vinny Desharnais is a beast, Mike. Like the way he's come in and played for this team, for him to do it this late in his career. I mean, he's 26 or 27. Yeah. What a find. What an addition. He's been just an aberration for this team this year. Exactly what they needed. Exactly the style of player that they needed.
Yeah, he's been awesome. I remember looking at this like 5 games into his start there, thinking like, yeah, this guy's been pretty good. And you start looking at things like,
You're like,
he
man,
leads them in that. Like defensively, blocking passes or winning battles or whatever.
Minutes just going up and up and
Yeah.
up.
Exactly. So, this is an Oilers team that we know they can score, and it's always just, you get down to crunch time. It's like, okay, well, what can they do? Try to keep the puck out of their net as well. You find this guy and helps, like Struddy said, it helps kind of balance everything out. And I think that's, I think a lot of teams are doing that right now. And we got to talk about the Maple Leafs a little bit, right? Because how could I be on a podcast and not talk?
Sorry, Mike, we're losing you. We're losing you, Mike. We're going to have to let you go.
We'll take our check, please.
What if I just chirped him though? That's accepted.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, do it.
But like they're going through that right now with Sheldon Keefe and the 48 defensemen they have in Toronto, just trying to find who works where. The results haven't been good recently, but like, who cares? It's an evaluation process for 3 weeks from now. And that's, Edmonton's probably doing a little bit of that themselves, where Jay Woodcroft and his guys are thinking, okay, like let's throw these guys together for a bit, just kind of see what it looks like. Like, I'll never forget listening to some of the best coaches ever talk about how to coach a game 7 and what goes into preparing. And they all said the same thing at one point or another, which is you do not want to get your players to do something that they haven't done before.
100%.
So, don't put them in that spot in that game. So,
yeah, exactly.
Did I throw you off?
Did I throw you off with the music, guys? Mike? Did I throw you off with the music coming in? I'm playing you off stage here, kind of like the Emmys. Can you hear it?
Yeah, there it is. I got it now. I said the 3 fatal words, Toronto Maple Leafs.
You did, and that's it. We had no choice but to bring in the music and wrap you. Mike, this was fantastic, man. I loved this podcast. This was awesome. A different perspective, some different numbers, putting things into context. I don't want to gush too much, man. I'm just a huge fan of the numbers you guys use, the logic that you use at Sportlogiq. And where can people find your stuff? NHL Network on Twitter, and you're pushing lots out there yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the best part is working with people like yourself that are in the rinks every day, and people like you, Struddy, that have played, and you just marry it all together, right? So, so appreciate it. Mike Kelly, NHL on Twitter, which you can see
right down there. Yep.
And yeah, down here in New Jersey right now at the NHL Network. So
beauty.
If you can find it in Canada, battle. But if you can find it, where I'll be at.
Mike, will you come back again and join us here, maybe through the stretch drive and in the playoffs? We would love to have you back on the pod.
Yeah, anytime, buddy. Just you have to buy me at least 1 beer on the road. That's the deal. That's
Got Your Back is known for buying some beers on the road. So definitely we will. Okay, Struds, on the count of 3, let's both pull our hats off, and Mike can do the analytics on whose situation is more dire. Ready, Struddy? 1.
Listen, don't
2,
be mad. Don't be mad because you're
3.
a fluffer.
Come on, Struddy. I dare you.
I'm not being mad. I'm not gonna join in your anger.
You're also not taking your hat off right now. You're also not taking your hat off.
I haven't done it up yet.
You haven't fluffed it up yet? Exactly.
No, I haven't
Who's
done it.
the fluffer?
Wax. I use wax.
Dynamite. Okay, guys, great job today. Thank you so much. And a big thanks to everybody for joining us here on the live stream, Twitter, and on YouTube as well. Big thanks to the sponsors as well, Mr. Dirk, DLR Vinyl Products, Sherwood Buick GMC, and Weiss Johnson as well. Oilers with a monster game coming up on the weekend against Vegas. Struds and I will try and drop a podcast on Sunday. Until then, have yourselves a fantastic day.